people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Σας, είμαι η Χριστίνα Λιναρδάτου Ντουράν. Έχω υπάρξει 2 φορές παγκόσμια πρωταθλήτρια της WBO στην επαγγελματική πυγμαχία. Άφησα τον τίτλο μου ελεύθερο για το όμορφο δώρο της μητρότητας. Όταν αποφάσισα να κάνω παιδί, υποσχέθηκα στον εαυτό μου ότι θα επιστρέψω και θα ξαναπάρω πίσω τον τίτλο μου. Και αυτό και έκανα. Προσπάθησα πάρα πολύ για να ξανααγωνιστώ. Λίγο καιρό μετά την επιστροφή μου, αγωνίστηκα με την Αλήθεια Baumgardner, με την οποία είχα αγωνιστεί πριν από μερικά χρόνια και η οποία η μόνη ήττα που είχε ήταν από μένα. Παρόλο που αγωνιστήκαμε στο σπίτι της, στο Detroit στο Michigan, πήγα με ανεβασμένη ψυχολογία για να διεκδικήσω όλους τους τίτλους. Δώσαμε έναν πάρα πολύ ωραίο αγώνα, τον οποίο και ευχαριστήθηκα, παρόλο που έχασα στα σημεία. Λίγο καιρό μετά πληροφορήθηκα ότι απέτυχε το topic control. Ενώ περίμενα μήνες για να λάβω μία απάντηση, πριν από μερικές ημέρες, μία από τις ομοσπονδίες δήλωσε ότι ενώ βρέθηκε εντοπαρισμένη, δεν έχουν αρκετά στοιχεία για το αν το έκανε από πρόθεση ή όχι. Κάτι το οποίο μου φαίνεται εντελώς παράλογο. Βρέθηκε εντοπαρισμένη και απαιτώ να αποδοθεί δικαιοσύνη από όλες τις ομοσπονδίες και από το αμερικανικό δίκαιο. Αυτό το βίντεο δεν το κάνω για να θίξω ή να κατηγορήσω κανέναν. Το κάνω για το άθλημά μας, την πυγμαχία, την οποία και αγαπώ πάρα πολύ. Είναι ένα δυναμικό άθλημα και είναι σημαντικό να μείνει καθαρό. Όλες μου τις νίκες από εδώ και στο εξής θα τις αφιερώσω σε όλους εκείνους που έχουν αδικηθεί και σε όλες εκείνες τις μητέρες που παρά τα εμπόδια και τις δυσκολίες συνεχίζουν μπροστά. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
That is two-time WBO super lightweight champion Christina Linardatou of Greece airing her grievances that nothing has been done in the case of Alicia Baumgardner, their rematch, that even though it's established that Alicia tested positive for a banned substance, nothing has been done about it. In Christina's own words, this is my official response to posts that have my name lately regarding my fight with Alicia Baumgartner. My statement was made this way because I don't want to target, offend, and blame anyone. I just want to emphasize by this that sports should remain clean, and finally, the responsible authorities should take official positions and punish every offense fairly. In my case, I demand the federations in American law to intervene and do justice, do something, since all of this started months ago in the summer of last year. The Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission that oversaw this bout in Michigan, they didn't do anything. No. They didn't suspend Alicia, they didn't overturn the decision. No. They did nothing. The presiding commission are the only ones that can really hand out penalties. I mean, the sanctioning bodies can decide to strip a fighter of their alphabet title, but the buck stops there. They can't do much after that. And what you will notice about this situation is an official suspension never came down from the presiding commission. The Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission didn't do anything. They didn't even comment on the matter. They didn't even overturn the decision, rule it a no contest, because if nothing else, we know that Alicia did test positive for something. Now, whether or not she willingly ingested it, that's something else. And so, without an official suspension coming down from the Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission, legally, that may put the sanctioning bodies in a bind, because they may not be able to just strip Alicia Baumgartner of her titles if she was never actually suspended for anything. It could be a situation like that. The WBC have already ruled on the matter. They've already convened. They're not going to strip Alicia. They're not going to take her title from her on the predication that the positive test does not prove that she willingly took a banned substance. And I said it before. The problem with that is you could make that argument for almost anyone and everyone that has tested positive for a banned substance. The test can't tell you anybody willingly took something. All it can tell you is that it's there. It's in their system. So if you use that argument for her, can't you then apply that logic to everyone else? Now that's the WBC's rationale in all of this. We don't know what the other 3 alphabet organizations are gonna do or not do. We don't know. What we do know is Christina's not happy about it. What we can see is that from where she's sitting, it looks like nobody in America is interested in dispensing justice when it comes to this. The alphabet organizations, they haven't done much of anything. To her, it looks like you're gonna let her get away with it. You're gonna let the decision stand. It's how Christina feels. To her, that's how it looks. They're gonna let her get away with it. I can't blame her for being angry.
I can't.
Because I see both sides of it.
I do.
One side of it, boxing's got a revolving door policy when it comes to banned substances and fighters that test positive for them. It's desensitized me to it over the years, but if you're Christina and you were actually in the ring with said fighter, well, that's a very different thing. And she wants justice. You lost a fight to a fighter who tested positive for a banned substance, and nobody's gonna do nothing about it. They're not gonna reverse the decision and nothing. That's how it looks to her. So, how should she feel? What's the appropriate response, and what would be ideal in a sport where things are seldom ever ideal? How is she supposed to feel? What is she supposed to say? In other news, the people at Matchroom and DAZN recently announced a string of shows that start from now into the spring months. And to those shows, Teofimo Lopez, the 2-division champion, he decided to go on the attack. He decided to poo-poo all over those shows, saying, yeah, it makes sense why DAZN cut your budget. You guys will be done soon enough. Best believe boxing is looking forward to it, including myself. Hashtag Eddie, go bye-bye.
What the hell's his problem?
Let's do this in segments. First, we will address what Teofimo Lopez said, then we will address why he said it. Now, as far as what he's saying that DAZN cut Matchroom's budget, but the signs of a promotional outfit that has fallen on hard times due to a shrinking budget, those signs and symptoms are not there.
Nope.
Case in point, Matchroom announced a string of shows that start from now into the spring months.
Right.
Well, one of the signs of a promotional outfit that may have fallen on hard times is a lack of fight dates, not a proliferation of them, a lack of shows, not a proliferation of shows. If DAZN has rolled out a comprehensive schedule of fights already, what the hell makes you think their budget's been cut? When you see that they're not rolling out shows, when you see that their fighters are left in limbo with no fight dates and nothing to do, when you see them outsourcing fighters, that might be an indicator that they've fallen on hard times and that their annual budget is shrinking. That would be an indicator, but with Matchroom, it's the opposite. Their fighters are fighting. They've announced Jordan Gill versus Zelfa Barrett. They've announced Dalton Smith versus Jose Zepeda. They announced a fight for Richardson Hitchens. They announced a fight for Diego Pacheco. They announced a fight for Edgar Berlanga. And these are all separate shows, separate cards. Their fighters are fighting. Their other fighters, like Justice Huni, Jai Opataya, Dimitri Bivol, Anthony Joshua, they've got fights coming up in Saudi. And those fights, in spite of being distributed on their platform, aren't even on Matchroom or DAZN's dime. They're on the Saudis' dime, which creates a cash surplus for them. See, since Matchroom doesn't have to pay Anthony his next fight purse, or Jai Opataya, Dimitri Bivol, their next fight purses, that's not coming out of their annual budget. The Saudis are paying for that. What that does is create a cash surplus for Matchroom, because they're still getting the content at no expense to them. And they can then take the money that they would have spent on a Joshua fight, or an Opataya fight, or a Bivol fight. They can take that money and put it somewhere else, use it for something else, to do another show, maybe sign some more fighters. So let's get it straight. One of the main indicators of a promotional outfit that has fallen on hard times is a lack of fight dates and a lack of shows, not a proliferation of them like what we're seeing with Matchroom. A waste, Another indicator of a promotional outfit that has fallen on hard times is a proliferation of pay-per-views. If everything they're doing ends up behind a paywall, that's an indicator that their budget has shrunk. They can't bankroll those shows themselves, and they're turning to the fans to finance those fights. Tantamount to crowd-funded boxing.
Like what we saw with the PBC on Fox before Fox pulled the plug, or what we saw at the PBC on Showtime before Showtime pulled the plug. Practically everything they were doing was behind a paywall.
Cause their budget shrunk, and the only way they could do those shows was put them on pay-per-view, hoping that the fans will pay for them. But that's not the case with Matchroom. They have a proliferation of shows and a proliferation of fight dates for their fighters, but they're not box office fights. They're not pay-per-views, so by all accounts, their fighters are fighting, their fighters are active, they're still doing cards, they seem to be doing just fine. So why is Teofimo making this accusation?
We've addressed what he said. Now let's get into why he said it.
He thinks it's Matchroom's fault that he lost to George. That all that stuff that happened over a year ago, he's laying the blame at the feet of Matchroom, when the fight never would have ended up in Matchroom's possession if you would have did it at the price that Top Rank wanted to do it. He's putting it on Matchroom that he lost his belts to George, when if he would have listened to the people at Top Rank, it never would have got that far. You would have did the fight, got it out of the way, and moved on to something bigger. But you dragged this out so you could get a slightly bigger purse. You did all this for a little bit more money, so when it blows up in your face, you want to blame Eddie. You want to blame Matchroom.
I don't understand.
After Lopez beat Lomachenko and became unified champion, the IBF ordered the fight between him and George, his mandatory challenger. Now at this time, the crowds weren't all the way back yet and the shutdown was just ending. Top Rank wanted to do the fight at a modest price, but Teofimo, he didn't like that. He wasn't happy with the money, so they ended up not reaching a deal and it went to a purse bid.
And when it went to purse bid, out of the clear blue sky, some new outfit, some new platform that goes by the name Triller, they placed the highest bid, winning the rights to the fight. The second highest bid came from Matchroom.
They tried to win the rights to the fight, but got beat out by Triller. So Triller wins the rights to the fight, but then weeks and months go by. Triller is having issues scheduling the match, and before you know it, a damn year goes by.
And as a result of Triller not making the fight happen in a timely fashion, the IBF finds them in default.
They lost the rights to the fight because it was taking them too long to do the fight, and the rights to the fight went to the second highest bidder. The second highest bidder was Matchroom. Now at this time, it's already been a year between the Lomachenko fight and the Kambosos fight. The night of, a year had passed. And this is all on Lopez because he's the one who wanted more money. For a fight that wasn't a big fight, he wanted big money.
He ended up making slightly more money than he would have made had he let Top Rank do the fight. But it came at a cost.
Yeah.
He lost his belts.
Yeah.
He lost to George. By then, he had outgrown the weight.
Yeah.
He was sick.
Yeah.
He was having domestic issues. It was a mess.
But it's a mess that he created because he's the one who wanted big money for what wasn't a big fight, not at the time, and given the circumstances at the time that we were just coming out of the shutdown and the crowds, they weren't all the way back yet. Bob wasn't gonna pour money down the drain to satisfy Teofimo's ego. In the end, Teofimo did it to himself, but he chooses to blame Matchroom.
He's been having a go at them ever since. And if you didn't see the fight and all you saw was Teofimo's conspiracy theories and his attacks at DAZN and Matchroom, you would think they ran over his cat, parked in front of his driveway.
If you didn't see the fight and all you saw was Teofimo having a go at them, you would think they did something to him. If you didn't see the fight, but if you did see the fight, you'll know what happened. You lost, and you're blaming them for that.
It's your fault. You were never supposed to spend that much time on a George Kambosos fight.
You losing your titles on a Matchroom show profits Matchroom nothing because George wasn't their fighter. George was with Lou.
Lou DiBella, and we all know how much Lou DiBella loves Matchroom, right?
What are you saying? That Matchroom conspired against you so that the belts would change hands and go to George when George wasn't even their fighter. George was with Lou DiBella.
I don't know what he's thinking. What? That Matchroom wanted the belts to go to George so that they could do what? What? I don't know what. A Haney fight? A Devin Haney fight?
It's compelling. It's a compelling theory, but here's the problem with it.
What?
It relies on the predication that Lopez didn't actually lose, when if you saw the fight, he lost the fight. He definitely lost the fight. He came out there like a bat out of hell, trying to knock out George early, which left the door open for George to walk him into counter shots, counter punches. That's how George beat him. That's how George dropped him.
The problem with your theory is you don't think you lost when you lost. You definitely lost.
I remembered immediately after the fight something that Lopez said. Something along the lines of, if that same fight were at Top Rank, he would have still got the decision, a favorable decision, or something along those lines. Well, yeah, if it were at Top Rank, that might have happened, but why wasn't it at Top Rank again?
Why?
Right. You wanted big money for what wasn't a big fight at a very inopportune time for everybody in boxing, because the crowds weren't all the way back yet, and we were just coming out of the shutdown. So once again, you did it to yourself. See, the problem with fighters like Teofimo Lopez and anybody like him, these fighters here today, is they think they know more about the industry than they actually do. And if you let the fighters tell it, if you let the fighters have it their way, it's always gonna work out to where they're supposed to get more money. No matter the circumstances, no matter the opponent, no matter what the situation is, it's always gonna work out to where they get more money, even when it doesn't make sense.
It has to be sustainable. Any business that is a business has to be sustainable. And paying above market value for a show, yeah, that's bad business. That's not sustainable. Overpaying to satisfy your demands.
And before you tell me that he was right to demand more money, that what Teofimo wanted wasn't out of line, look at where it got him. Look at what happened.
You got a little bit more money, but was it worth it? Look at what it costed you. It costed you time. It costed you your belts. It costed you your momentum.
Was it worth it? Because in the end, you did get a little bit more money, but was it worth it? Teofimo thinks he knows more about grooming a fighter and building a fighter than the people at Top Rank and all their decades of experience. Kinda like how Ryan Garcia thinks he knows more about the process and building a fighter than the people at Golden Boy. These young guys are always getting ahead of themselves and shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, look at Ryan. Look at what happened to him at the hands of Gervonta Davis. That wasn't necessary. It didn't have to happen that way.
And you actually had more leverage than you realized at the time, because you're younger than Gervonta, so time is on your side, and there was no other fight out there like your fight that could have got Gervonta that kind of money. That was your leverage.
Ryan had that fight much sooner than he needed to, and adhered to weight stipulations that weren't necessary because he rushed it.
It's what these young guys do. Teofimo rushed it with those purse demands. You're not in a place where you can make those demands yet.
You weren't. So when it blows up in your face, you say it's Matchroom's fault when Ryan's decisions blew up in his face. Who did he blame? He blamed Golden Boy because they weren't there at the post-fight press conference to help him wipe the pie out of his eye. These kids these days, they're peas in a pod, a dime a dozen. Fighters rise and fall. They're never gonna like the sound of that. And what their problem is, they're trying to wear too many hats that don't fit them.
Because Teofimo knows more than Top Rank about how to groom a fighter. Because Ryan knows more than Oscar about how to be a celebrity, how to be a big-time boxer. Big-time boxing, he knows more than Oscar. Why? Because of his Instagram followers.
When both of their actions blew up in their face, who did they blame? The people that were grooming them, their promoters, who they went against. It was their fault, not their promoters. You can't make it up.